Hello and welcome to another Playbook with the insurance dudes. And you've got one insurance dude named Craig Pretzinger that's ready to dive into the principles for your agency. What the heck are principles and why do we need them? Does it even matter? This is crazy. You can't quantify that stuff. I know, but it's really, really, really important. You already know that purpose was so important. Well, now let's look at principles. That's your core values. Heard of that before, right?
Insurance dudes are on a mission to escape being handcuffed by our agencies.
How? By uncovering the secrets to creating a predictable, consistent, and profitable agency sales machine.
I am Craig Pretzinger.
I am Jason Feldman.
We are agents.
We are insurance dudes.
Well, welcome back. This is Craig. And I know that during the jingle, you were leaving a review, but if you weren't, it's time to do it. So you can just hit pause and go down to the scroll down and click the little 5 stars and leave a little thing. And we'd really appreciate that. And then when you finish that, then go over to YouTube and just click subscribe, just in case you don't have it on YouTube yet. So we really appreciate that. But let's talk about principles, right? Oh, I almost want to say we're talking about practice. So no, we're not. We're talking about principles. So what are principles? Well, it's the second P. That's the first thing. Nailed that. And it's a really, really critical piece of the overall framework. So if the purpose is the why, then the principles are the how that support the why. Hope that makes sense. So it's the core values. So these are going to be the core values that guide the agency's behavior and the agency's decision-making, right? These are the things that are going to help us make sure that all of the other components of the other 3 Ps, your people, your processes, and your performance are all interwoven, utilizing your core values. So again, this is one of those exercises where you're going to have to sit down and really come up with these things that are the guiding lights, that are non-negotiables, that must be adhered to for your agency to be real. Now, I've worked a couple jobs in my lifetime here where it was at a big corporation and they had the core values and they had the thing and they went through all of that. They even had them up all over the campus. And the interesting thing was they weren't followed. I noticed that as people were more fearful of leaving their box, the less likely those core values were to be actually followed. So we don't want that, right? We don't want us to be like a big corporation that has a bunch of stuff but doesn't do it. We want to actually talk the talk and then walk the walk. So the talk is putting down those core values. The walk is enforcing those core values and making decisions to guide the behavior of your agency based on those core values. We don't break the core values. They're non-negotiables. So let's look through the lens of the core values that we created here in the Pretzinger Agency that you can use for yourself, or, sit down and come up with some core values. And you want these core values to support your overall purpose, right? Very, very important. So what we did was a while back, we sat down and had a meeting, one of our daily meetings. We have meetings every day. I know that we hammer that home. If you're not having daily meetings, you got to go back. If you're new to the insurance dudes, go back, find some episodes on meetings. You'll hear us talking about it. We talk about it every week in our elite dude call. So really critical that we leverage that. So what is the first core value that we came up with as a team when we were putting all these things together? Well, the first thing is be kind. So this is be kind, and it's everywhere. It isn't just be kind on the phone and be kind to the folks that you're working with. It's be kind to everyone around you. These things can also overlap and affect your personal life too. Being kind creates that ripple effect. And what we want to do is create a place that's comfortable, and people want to come to a place where everyone is kind, where their peers treat them kindly, and where there's a mutual respect for everybody, not some thing where everybody's just beating each other up or not treating each other nicely. Or with clientele, sometimes clientele could be our customers can be a little grouchy. If the rates went up, we still need to be kind. We need to come from a place of kindness and a place of compassion and wanting to help. So that's our first one, is being kind. Really, really important here. And it gives everybody the warm fuzzies. Be honest. Being honest is really important. We also have be ethical, kind of the same thing, but we wanted to reinforce it because it's so important. In our sales calls, we do not lie. They do not make things up. They adhere to the script, and the script doesn't deviate too far from that outline that they use when they're talking to people. But they want to come from a place of honesty and a place of kindness when they're delivering the script, when they're talking to them. The next thing is to be helpful. We want to be helpful, right? We want to come from a place of we're here to help. In the same way that Jason and I created the podcast because we wanted to be helpful to agents, we want our teams and to be helpful to our clients. We want to be helpful to our teams. Everybody should be helpful to each other. It also can be looked at from every angle here, and think of it this way. It's also helpful to not interrupt people and ask them every time that somebody needs something, right? So being helpful doesn't necessarily mean every time somebody doesn't understand how to do something that you jump on it and you're helpful in that way. It can also be helpful to them if you allow them to try to figure things out. So don't get lost in helpful as being an appeaser or the people pleaser. That isn't helpful. Being helpful is enabling somebody to be more successful and be more understanding. So somebody may need help in understanding how certain policy works or understanding the certain policy jacket. Well, some of that stuff doesn't need to be told from a agency owner point of view, or doesn't need to be explained or taught by a peer. These things can be found right on your carrier's intranet or from the Google, right? So the next principle or core value that we have is be resourceful. We want people that can think critically and are resourceful, that don't have to have their hand held constantly and are willing to learn and aren't afraid to screw up by learning it themselves and then taking it on and trying to do it. And then learning from the mistake, if there is a mistake. Remember, we're not building airplanes. We're not doing brain surgery. Nobody's going to die. So it's okay for people to make small mistakes as long as they learn from them. Really important. So we can be helpful to somebody by not necessarily helping them every time they want to use us as a crutch, because we're actually helping them to be resourceful. So again, see how I walked through those things in order to make sure that the decision to help or not was based off of the core values. And then I had be ethical, but let's tie that in with be honest. And then, of course, be real. It's so important to be real. A lot of folks come into this business, and as soon as they get on the phone and start talking to a prospect or a client, they get all in their professional tone. And I'm going to help you and I'm going to talk like this, which is totally uncharacteristic to how they normally talk. And people, they want reality. They want to talk to somebody who's authentic. And it's so obvious when somebody isn't being true to themselves and speaking from their heart. We want to speak from our heart. We want to connect with our prospects. We want to have them like us and want to do business with us and understand that all of the other things, being kind, being honest, being helpful, being resourceful, are the core values that we have in our agencies. We want them to be passionate about that with the prospects and the clients, and they're going to see that, right? We want them to see our agents. We want them to see who they are. We want them to be real with the clients. And that's such an important and refreshing piece to bring to the table when we're interacting with our prospects. And this is important too from the agent standpoint, right? From our standpoint as the owner, we want to be real. And I'm guilty of this as well. A lot of agents, we tend to differentiate ourselves and put ourselves up on this pedestal. We're the leader, but in doing so, we can alienate ourselves from the group. We want to be the leader and we want to have the authority. And it's important to have that authority. It's important to be the authority, to be the figurehead, and to help our team. But at the same time, it's also really important to be real and not be some false leader. And what do I mean by that? I mean, be authentic and be true to who you really are, because then you're the real you and you're delivering your real values and your real purpose. And that instills a lot more trust and passion in your team to follow you. They're going to follow somebody who's real versus somebody who is saying all the things that everyone is saying just to be saying those things. It's really important to differentiate that. And again, going back to that ego and looking at what are we saying? Am I saying those things? And this is what you may ask yourself as you're creating those core values. Are you being authentic when you're creating them? Are you being real? Is this the real you coming through? Because if it's not, it may be time to take a look at who we really are as an agent. If it isn't something that's going to resonate with the team and help to create a really strong team, and resonate with the clients and create a magnetic agency that attracts people, really important. So then living those principles, right? Once we have those principles in place, we're going to live those principles. So we're going to make decisions based on that. I said earlier, I think a few episodes ago when I was introducing the concepts, that we make our decisions based on the principles instead of on the people, right? We're not going to make our decisions and say, oh, well, he's a good dude or he's not or whatever. No, it's not about the person. It's about the principles and the core values and the purpose. If the way that somebody is operating, if their modus operandi is such that it doesn't line up with our core values, then we need to eject them. And we're ejecting them not because of them, but because our core values don't necessarily align with the way this person operates. And we're going to try to flesh all that out in the interview when we're talking to people, before we bring them on. We want to make sure that we're asking questions and putting them in situations that tests that. And we'll get more entrenched in that when we get to the people episode. So in the same way that we talked about how purpose in the last episode was a fundamental differentiator for our agency, and it was the first big cornerstone of the foundation that we put down, the core values were equally as important. Once we had that why defined, then we had to have the what's that helped to support that. And that's how we came up with our core values. And we always go back to them. We always look to whether or not the things that we're doing today are supporting and in alignment with those core values. So that's where I'm going to leave it at that. And I hope this was super, super valuable for you. If it was, smash that subscribe button because we need you around. We would love to keep helping with more important and valuable content, but we need you to be listening for that to happen. And we encourage you to share this with anybody else you know. Share it on Facebook. Why not? Go ahead and share it. So we will see you on the next episode where we get into the third P. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.